All right, stand by. Roll sound.
Speed.
Roll camera.
Speeding.
Slate.
Scene one, take one. Mark.
And action. Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Burnie's Applebox, and we got a great one going on today. I'm here with Billy Klein, and I'm going to tell you this. Billy is an engineer, and I may be getting his title wrong, but he's also co-founder of Hybrid Studios, and that's our home here at the Applebox Network. I think Billy's an engineer, but okay, then I got the first part right, but he's going to tell us what he does. And let me just tell you, and Billy too, I know nothing about your world. So I'm very anxious and very interested in coming in and having you tell us. Welcome, Billy.
Well, thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, Billy, now, we're here at Hybrid Studios, in the home of the Applebox Network.
Yep.
And what you have here is pretty amazing. Of course, we had Mike Miller on a few weeks ago, and he did a wonderful job of explaining the operations here at Hybrid and everything like that. But I know you have, as a co-founder, come in a different capacity and stuff like that. But let me just tell the folks and walk me through a little bit of this. First, we have a state-of-the-art soundstage here. It's 30 by 20 with 2 coves in it. Yep. Now, you being an engineer and building a facility like this, what was the impetus in putting in a soundstage?
Okay, so that kind of goes to like the whole story of why we formed almost. So the other co-founder is Patrick Acomlish, and he's actually in charge of the kind of the video side, the soundstage. And what kind of the catalyst to starting Hybrid was I was working up at Sony Music as an independent contractor, and kind of hit a glass ceiling there. And Pat was looking to open a studio, like a film studio down here in Orange County, and it was kind of the right moment to team up together and open a location together. So, you know, from day one, we always planned on having half of the building be like a film visual side and an audio side as the other half. And, you know, that's kind of why we went in that direction, was just him coming from that other world and me from my world.
So the two worlds came together right here at Hybrid.
Exactly.
And Hybrid, of course,
Hybrid.
No-brainer name,
exactly.
Right?
It works in many ways. You know?
Exactly. No, it's very, very well, very, very nicely done. And I can attest, I'm sorry that we'll do other walkthroughs where we show the place a little better, but it is so state-of-the-art. It's mind-boggling to come in here. I remember the first time I visited, shortly after you guys opened, I think, the first time I came and saw Mike and did a walkthrough here. Mind-boggling. I just said, there's nothing like it. I've never seen anything like it in LA or anywhere else.
Yeah, it's pretty unique.
It is very unique, very unique. Great job. And so now taking that, that's why you put it together. That makes total sense. Is there much synergy between the two?
There is and there isn't. You know, like some of our video clients or visual clients will do music videos, or some of our audio clients will do music videos. So that's some synergy. You know, sometimes we'll do voiceovers for video stuff. Sure. But for the most part, it's kind of like two different worlds just coexisting in one location. Yeah. Yes.
And that's kind of like meeting you. You know what I mean? It was like for me, because I've been in the video world for 25 years now. You've been in the audio world how long would you say your career has been so far?
Maybe like 10 years. Since,
10 years? 15 years probably?
About, like 10 years,
something like that. And my world never intersects your world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
now,
is pretty rare.
I do music videos, but they're really music videos.
Right.
We're just using playback at that
video.
point.
Yeah, totally.
It's video. And so it really interested me that those two are together. And also it's left me in a unique position in interviewing you, because even though we know each other, we're friends, we've sat down and talked many times, but I know so little about how your world works. I can tell you on the production side, the video side, this is the way people get work. Here are the departments, who you need. This is how those departments work. I can tell you all that stuff. On your side, I know. Well, here's what I know about music producers.
Okay.
And actually, I'm blanking on his name right now, which is very embarrassing. the music producer of the Beatles.
Oh,
Martin, George.
thank you.
Yeah,
George Martin.
George
Yeah,
Martin.
I'm gonna look back.
And that's about all I know. I'm serious. You know what I mean? I mean, I've heard of engineers before, and certainly heard musicians talking about their engineers in the recording studio, but I have no idea what sort of duties that has, and where the producer and the engineer intersect and where they
Yeah.
separate. You know. So why don't you just give me, first of all, you're an engineer, is that correct? Or are you
Yeah,
a producer as
it's
well?
kind of nowadays they kind of blend into one for the most
okay.
part. You know, it's it kind of budget and project size dictates the amount of hierarchy that there is.
Right.
Producer would be at the top, then engineer, and then assistant engineer below that. So just it just depends on how much involvement that person has. You know.
Okay, how much influence
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
project
Yeah,
they
exactly.
have, right?
Creative
Okay.
decision making,
Right.
that kind of thing.
So the producer in a recording environment might be the sort of equivalent to a director in our environment. In
Yeah.
other words, the producer is there, but that's almost producing is a business element of the production, where the director is actually saying, here's how I want this scene to look.
Yeah.
And the producer in the recording, and correct me if I'm
Yeah, no,
wrong
you're
here,
right.
in the recording thing says, this is the sound I want,
Yeah,
or this is
exactly.
the feel I want.
Yeah,
right
or
here.
like, these kind of things should be happening at this point in the song. And I mean, there is also the aspect of like a producer also doing the business side of like, okay, let's map out how long we're going to spend to do drums on X amount of songs. And so that all
Got you.
plays into it as well. But
Okay.
they also are making those kind of like director.
The director style
Yeah.
feel of the piece.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So now the producer would actually do that. This brings up a good point, something you just mentioned I'd never ever thought about. So prior to the recording session you've got vocals, obviously, you've got guitar, you've got drums, maybe you've got horns or something
Yeah.
like that. Does the producer prior to going into the studio figures out, I've got 2 hours for drums, I've got an hour for horns, I've got 4 hours for vocals?
I think most of the time that's like the goal, but
Yeah.
then you get in there and you.
The reality
yeah,
is-
exactly. There's different levels of talent, and you might think, oh, this should only take 2 hours to do whatever, and maybe it takes. Yeah, maybe you have to spend more time on it.
Right, right.
So yeah, I think most of the time you do go in with that game plan.
Okay.
And it's also pretty common to do pre-production, which is kind of just like the band rehearsing in a room with the producer
Okay.
and kind of making just like choices musically at that point of, maybe the drums shouldn't be less busy in this section. And so you have those decisions already made walking into the studio, so you're not wasting that time later.
Interesting, interesting. So in pre-production,
Yeah.
as in our pre-production, the band would go in, rehearse, the producer is there, and now he is starting to make assessments about the song,
Yeah.
about the recording, on what they want to do, hold this back,
Right,
add a little
exactly.
stretch out,
Yep,
stuff
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting, interesting. So, and is in our business, that saves you time when you're actually
Right.
spending the
Yeah,
real
right,
money.
exactly,
Right?
exactly,
Yeah. That's good. So now, producers then sound like the directors. They sound like the ones that are going to come in and do this. I know, or at least it's my perception, that producers are very important to the process.
Yep.
I've known. I was in an interview one time. I led an interview with Don Was. You know
Oh, yeah,
what I mean?
totally.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
worked with him
Yeah,
on a
have you
project.
really?
Yeah.
Sweet guy.
Oh, super nice.
Yeah, very nice guy. When you're on a level like that, I'm supposing that you pretty much pick and choose, or people are asking you who you want to record and all of that.
Yeah.
But how does a producer get in the business? How does a producer get started?
Man, I mean, it used to be more of a, work your way up a ladder type of thing. And I think, for the most part, and nowadays it's more, kind of just personal relationships, how you develop with them, kind of like the track record that you've developed, like how many successful things have you done, what kind of vein do they sound like, is it similar to what the artist is looking to do on their next project, a lot of like sonic choices come into it, so maybe
Define that for me.
Well,
Sonic choices.
I guess it's just more like, you know, how a snare drum is in every song,
Okay.
but like they can sound totally different.
Sure.
So you know, maybe a band wants their next project to sound more aggressive, so they might choose somebody that is good with bright, distorted guitar sounds.
Oh, okay.
And kind of somebody that
Okay.
knows that world a little bit.
Yes, that genre.
That genre, yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. So the bands then would be making the decision, or the individuals would be making decisions about, hey, we heard this producer, I really liked his
Yeah.
stuff. Let's work with him and bring him in.
Right.
And do
yeah,
that.
because they like what he adds to the project.
To
yeah.
their project. Yes. Would more than one producer ever work on a project?
Oh, yeah. I mean, most of the time you see that in like albums that have a bunch of singles.
Okay.
You know, for the most part, if you're going for like an album sound, you don't do that. But
Okay.
mostly like pop music might do something where like every song is a different producer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And are producers in their world, are they vying for artists? In other words, is that there? Does a producer go out and pursue artists?
Sometimes. I mean, there is that element of, you know, if they believe a project can go somewhere,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
does happen. It's kind of both, you know. Sometimes they're doing it for the gig, for a job, and
Right.
sometimes they're trying to do it for the future.
A build.
Yeah,
They're trying
yeah,
to do a
build.
build.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, in the context of this producer has his he knows what he wants to do, let's say. Then what is the process that the producer goes through? Is this now a point of picking out a studio, a right studio? I mean, what is the process the producer would go through then to start making that happen?
I mean, I think it's mostly just everybody needs to feel comfortable. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Okay, sure.
So I mean,
You got to spend 10 hours with the people,
yeah,
right?
yeah, way more than that. You
Way
know how
more
it
than
goes.
that, yeah, right.
You become family, kind
Right.
of. So there is, and especially today, there's the element of the home studio thing. So
Yeah.
a lot of the bigger producers have their own studios, and it's just kind of a matter of like, do they need space? Do they not need space? And so
Okay.
that kind of goes into the decision making of, okay, where should we do this project? You know?
Yeah. So a producer may have, in other words, you can't, it's not so expensive. You could
Right.
have a studio at home.
Oh, totally.
Or in a building on your property
Yeah.
or something like that.
And a lot of times it could be, you know, to use the word hybrid, it could
Yeah.
be both, you know.
Sure.
A lot of the time, kind of just for budget efficiency,
Mm-hmm.
you know, certain projects will come in and do the stuff that requires a lot of space, and
Yeah.
then go and do overdubs in, you know, the producer's house or
Oh,
something like that,
okay.
just to try and be
Okay.
as economic as possible.
Right. Now, when I hear stories, and you know, I mean, you can see the wrinkles. I mean, take a look at the screen here. You know what I mean? There's a few more years here. But it's because I'm going way back now. Is like when you hear things like Sun Studios in Memphis, where Elvis started. I think of Chess Records, where the Rolling Stones went in Chicago and they did some stuff. Or Mobile, Alabama, and I have no idea why that place would be going off
Yeah.
by any means. But are these studios in those places, is there a special sound in there, or is it just hollowed ground?
I think it's both. It's kind of a little bit of both. There's definitely the aspect of like, you know, these previous big projects have been done here, and there's that vibe appeal to it. But at the same time, every studio has their own, you know, certain gear, and
Yeah.
the gear all has like its own sonic impression that it puts on. So
Okay.
it kind of, you know, depending on what they're going for, you know, a studio might lend itself better in different ways for different genres.
For those things.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
like, you know, something that needs like big rock drums, you know, you need a big room, you know?
Yeah.
And so that would be in the decision making to use that kind of studio.
Yeah.
And like, you know, maybe a older sounding song it's kind of like close mic'd, so the room becomes less important. And so it just is, you know, the size of the room isn't the top priority at that point. It's, you know, maybe what mic collection do they have, you know, and
Oh, well, interesting. That's interesting. So then studios, and I know you guys have like amps back there, and Mike ran us through a little bit too of how you work those. have different sounds. You
Yep.
might put those in an isolated room,
Yep.
record those by themselves there, and have that track stronger. But you say it might even be like there might be certain mics that studio has or equipment, and that might be the attraction to that
Right,
studio as
totally.
an ancillary product.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a couple studios in LA that just have these extensive mic collections that, Frank Sinatra used. And,
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? So like that's a whole selling point in itself. That's like, oh,
Wow,
you
I
can sing
didn't-
in
I-
Frank
I-
Sinatra's microphone.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So that is, and is there, I mean, the microphone can't make you sound like Frank Sinatra.
Right. No, it
right?
can't. No,
It's
no,
just a
definitely
microphone,
can't. No,
right?
it can't.
Yeah. But it's just the tone of it or
Yeah,
something,
it's the
the
tone.
tonality.
It's all tone. That's
Okay.
what all the gear is doing. It all has. It's kind of like 31 flavors of ice cream.
Right.
It's like they're all ice cream, but they all are doing their
Right.
own unique thing.
Right,
And
right.
it's just like the combo of how you combine them all.
Yeah.
Is what makes the end product the best that it can be.
Okay. Okay. So let's leave hybrid out of the mix on this one when I ask you this question. But say I am a producer up in Hollywood. I want to go in, and I know there are so many. I wouldn't even know where to start. Even you trying to understand where all or how many of the recording studios there are. But let's just say. It's LA. You've got ones where the Doors were in. I'm sure Led Zeppelin did.
There's
I mean, everybody
so
is
many.
everything. All the
Yeah.
gold is there. What does a studio cost? If I'm going to go rent that for the day, and I know it's a variable,
Right,
but
right.
take me through those variables. Let me hear that.
I guess a lot of it becomes like how much equipment there is. That's probably the number one thing.
How much equipment, and describe the equipment that they're expecting to see or want.
okay, so-
Microphones,
Yeah,
sure.
microphones, and then there's compressors, EQs, mic pre's, the actual console. That's a huge
The
deal.
actual console.
That's like the main mixing board.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably one of the higher priority things. A lot of it too is just like the walls. Depending on like if you're doing acoustic instruments or organic instruments that actually vibrate air, not just like a computer
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
The wall layout really plays a huge part.
Okay.
And so depending on how many musicians there are, or there's going to be, it just space. Space is probably one of the larger things that dictate the pricing.
Okay.
Space, and then like name brand gear after that.
Name brand gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when somebody comes in and rents something, I mean, what can they expect to spend? What would be a reasonable spend? And give me something kind of middle of the road, not the highest,
Yeah.
certainly not the lowest, but say something with a good reputation, good equipment,
Yeah.
solid, just like in our industry that we see all the time. There's solid 30, 40, 50-year players now,
Yeah.
in the entertainment industry.
So I think like the common ones that most people would know are probably around like $1,000 or so for like a 10-hour day, 12-hour day.
Even in LA, even a name.
Yeah, like maybe $1,200 for
Okay,
like a 10-hour.
because
12-hour day.
that's not over the top.
I mean, it's not over the top, but at the same time, music budgets that'd be a pretty extravagant music budget to have, a week-long run at a studio at that price.
Right.
That's I'd say the minority
Yeah.
budget.
Just and we'll get into the business side of this, but
Yeah.
that's just because the money is not there.
Yeah, it
right?
just has changed how it all
In
works.
days past, five
Yeah.
grand would have been like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
right.
Are you
yeah,
kidding?"
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I've got you there. So when those decisions are made, and the band comes in, and the producer has the pre-production done, and they know what they want to do, they know what they're gonna make. The producer needs an engineer now, and probably the producer is probably an
There's a lot of
engineer
that
himself.
nowadays. It's just the technology has become so kind of convenient
Yeah.
that one man can run it all. It like there was the time when that wasn't the case, where you would need a guy like on a tape machine,
Yeah.
some guy in front of the speakers. You know what I mean? Like, you
Right,
actually
because
had, like, two
everything,
people.
yeah, it all has to work together,
Right.
and there has to be hands there to press those buttons.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely something that like technology has changed. Just
Yeah.
the blending of the role now is.
Yeah, very much like in our world as well.
Oh, yeah, totally,
Yeah,
totally.
very much like in our world. So But let's just say the producer, he wants an engineer because he wants to focus on maybe performance. He maybe wants to be, and I just learned this from Mike's interview, you call where the artists are, that's the live room.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then the, what is the, where
The control room.
the control room. So the live room and the control room. Maybe the producer wants to be with the artist in the live room.
Yeah,
right?
that happens a good amount. Yeah.
And he wants a good engineer. We're going to take a quick little break, and when you come back, I want to talk about engineers.
Okay.
All right, thanks. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Burnie. I own Burnie's Grip and Lighting, San Diego Grip and Lighting, and Los Angeles Grip and Lighting. You know, we pride ourselves on not only renting you the best equipment, but also giving you the best crews. And one of our core values here at Burnie's Grip and Lighting is that we give you the highest production value in the world. And remember, people used to say national, local. No, we present world-class production value on every set. We also know budgets are very tight these days, and you've got 10 hours to get what you need in the can. We move ahead, we move fast, and we know what you need. When you rent from Burnie's Grip and Lighting, you have a partner on your production for that day that is making sure you are well taken care of. So anytime you're in Southern California, give us a call at 714-609-3545, and we'll take very good care of you. See you on set. Hey everybody, we're right back here with Billy Klein, engineer and co-founder and owner of Hybrid Studios in Orange County, California, and audio engineer amongst other talents. And we had talked about the producer in last segment and just learned a little bit more, but I want to hear from you about the engineer, because there is a real, in my mind, or this is the way I've, admitting I know nothing about the music business, I've always seen as that was the guy who knew exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong here, but it's always fascinated me that somebody uses their hearing and their senses and their knowledge of electronics and all that to pull it all together. Now, you're an engineer.
Yeah.
And what made you go that route as a kid? What brought you into that world?
Okay, so my brief history, I used to play in a band, and I was the bassist in the band.
Okay.
And I kind of started to try and record our band.
Okay.
And kind of through wanting to make our recordings sound professional, kind of got sucked into that rabbit hole of researching more and more, trying to learn more and more. Eventually went to school for it. And
Where'd you go to school?
Loyola Marymount University.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right by LAX.
Sure.
Yeah. They have a great school of film and television, so that's where I went. And they have a recording arts major there.
Awesome.
So great program, would recommend it. So I mean, just trying to make my recordings for my band sound better, it just opened up a whole can of worms of, what's the next step always.
That you were the guy who they could start going to for questions because you had researched so much.
Research.
Yeah. So that led you down that path to engineering.
Yeah.
What was it like to start down the engineering path? What was that? How did you went to Loyola Marymount? Marymount, and I'm sure you made connections there.
Yeah.
And had. How was that getting into the business? How was it knocking on those doors at first?
One of the things that I always had a strong sense of doing was internships. And while I was at the school, there's more opportunities for internships just with how insurance works for all that. So I ended up getting an internship at Epic Records in Beverly Hills area. And I interned in their A&R department.
Okay.
And so that was kind of on the business side. And the guy that I actually worked under.
And give me A&R.
So it stands for Artist and Repertoire.
Okay.
And it's basically they're looking for new acts to sign to the label.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of just how they find new talent. It's the department for that.
So was your job to stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, going to clubs and listening to bands? And...
I mean, somewhat, part of what they had us doing there was kind of looking at the local venues and seeing who's coming in, listening to the music that they have, and kind of putting together of everybody going on, who would we be interested in seeing based off of what we've heard and what we found out about the band. And looking back, it's funny just because like a lot of those bands that me and the other interns were looking at have become huge now. And
Really?
yeah, like Fits in the Tantrums. Like I saw them with like 5 people in the Viper Room, and
Wow.
Imagine Dragons was another one that just like we got to see them before they were anything. So it's really crazy to just see like the act with they're the same act, just like in a room
But
with
no one-
nobody.
but
yeah,
no
in a
one
room
knows
with
them.
nobody.
Yeah.
And then going from like a huge venue
To a stadium
yeah,
or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible.
It is really insane.
That's incredible.
And just doing those kind of like exercises, you really realize like kind of just what it takes to kind of get to the next level. Where it's like they're just putting in the work, the band's putting in the work, regardless of people. They're doing it for passion. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Whether or not they have a following or not,
They're
doing
not
it 'cause-
counting heads.
Yeah, they're not counting heads.
Yeah.
They're going to go and perform and do the best show they can because
Right.
that's what they love to do.
Right.
And so the guys that just look at it that way,
Mm-hmm.
and do it long enough, I think kind of just build up some momentum. I mean, getting the attention of a label doesn't hurt.
Right. But it's sort of like, too, is like by taking action, you've beat 90% of your competition
right, yeah.
right there. So if you're doing it daily, if you're
Yeah,
pushing yourself
yeah.
and your band ahead,
Yeah.
and I know that's got to be tough having 5 different people
Right.
coordinating on the
That's
same
probably
thing.
the hardest thing,
The
yeah.
hardest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were doing that. You were working in the A&R department
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Tell me about that experience and how you brought yourself up from there, or if you needed to.
Yeah, so I mean, it was, ironically, there was like a couple different desks, and one desk was like in a prime spot. So I kind of learned that if I showed up early, I could like be more in the hubbub kind of
Yeah.
path of talking.
Smart.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, that kind of showed that I had initiative and actually cared. Versus just doing it to get like school credit or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just a bump on a log.
You were showing yourself
Yeah,
off
like this is
you're
what I want
supposed
to do. Yeah, exactly. I had the passion to do it. And luckily for me, it turned out that the A&R rep that I was under, he had his own studio, and it was fairly new. They had one engineer, his name's Phil Allen, great guy, awesome guy. And anyways, they were looking to kind of get interns over there. So once my internship ended at the A&R department, I kind of started in that studio because they knew I had like the studio background, and I would edit on my computer, like, in the prominent spot, so everybody would see that I'm editing. So, it kind of just seemed like a good fit. They knew who I was. They knew that I wasn't just going to like steal stuff. You know what I mean? I had like a track record.
No, yeah, there was some of they trusted you.
Yeah, right. I got some trust.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of how it started for me in the studio world. It's just one internship led to another internship, and I had the mentality of like, I'm gonna just like try my hardest and work at this as long as possible until they tell me to stop coming or start paying me, And that's what happened. I worked long enough and I started getting checks. So.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. That's great. So now you're just starting out as an engineer and stuff like that. And since you have been into this, you've gone to the university actually, and you've learned, you've been associated and immersed in that. Did you have ideas about what you wanted to do, or was it more really of learning at that point? Were there things that you wanted to try yourself right away?
Yes and no. For the most part, even to today, I look at it as like there's always more to learn. You know what I mean? Like there's always some trick that I have not heard of. So for the most
in every industry, in
right,
entertainment,
right.
And the technology is changing always
That
too.
too. That
so
too,
you can
yeah.
do other things.
And so I just kind of I took the mentality of like wanting to learn as much as I could from the top level people while I could.
Yes.
Because especially today, that's just such a path that doesn't really exist as much anymore. It's really, really rare to find like a multi-room studio that has like top level people using it all the time.
Yeah.
It's just that the studio world has just shrunk so much.
Right.
Yeah.
We did a thing for The Voice in Australia, and we spent a couple days up at Will.i.am's studio up in, I can't remember, it's Hollywood somewhere, I thought.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
And it was,
I'm sure.
it was
I'm sure it was top notch.
mind-boggling, I was taking a whole bunch of pictures, and it was kind of the word came down, maybe not so many pictures, because I was scouting. You know what I mean? We were scouting for the shoot, which I do. I take pictures of everything for that. But it was gorgeous, and I mean, mind-boggling. But yet, in a way, where the recording was, because it's all state of the art, it was. I don't know enough to say this, but it seemed kind of simple. It didn't seem easy, but it seemed like it was very cleared of anything you didn't need on there. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
That makes sense.
But it was a gorgeous, gorgeous place.
Interesting, yeah.
But most of the building wasn't about the recording studio. It was about the ancillary sort of offices and stuff like that.
Yeah, I could see that. I could
so
totally see
it was really nice. But when you're working, say now, and you're coming up, who was the first artist that you were impressed by that you started intersecting, or just tell us about that experience, because I don't know if that would fit.
Yeah, so I mean, the nice thing was, okay, so this studio that I got to work in, since it was an A&R guy's studio, it was top level people, recognizable names.
Sure.
And that is, I'd say, pretty rare to have just to have that kind of consistent flow of name recognizable.
And you
people.
knew who all these people were.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think most people would.
They would impress. Yeah,
yeah.
They would, well, give me some names, can you?
I'm trying to think
I do the same thing.
Yeah,
People ask me, what
movie
movie stars you work with?
Yeah.
Hundreds of them,
Yeah,
but I can't
exactly.
think of one right now.
The biggest project I got to take part of was the Adele "Someone Like You"
okay.
song. It was a smaller studio, so we didn't do a whole bunch of full band production.
Okay.
We did do a little bit, but not a ton. And this project was. It was just a normal day, you know what I mean? It was just a regular, nothing special. This was before Adele had that
She had
second
gone
album.
really big.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I knew who she was from her first album.
Yeah.
And they were just working on a demo, and it just. Long story short, what ended up happening is they tried to recreate the demo in a fuller, bigger studio. It lost the vibe that everybody liked about it, and so they ended up using the demo. Phil, my buddy, the engineer I worked for, he got a Grammy on that song, and
oh wow,
yeah, and we kind of all knew. It was just really weird to kind of be, just normal day, everyday life, and then one day, SNL does a parody featuring that song. You know what I mean? It's like you kind of feel like, oh wow, that is.
It comes
quite
from
unique.
this little place, and it goes all the way
exactly,
huge like
exactly,
that.
yeah. And then you can go in Trader Joe's, and then it's playing while you're shopping. It's like,
and that's
wow,
the
this
thing
is crazy.
you worked on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
that's
really crazy.
so fun.
I didn't get to do much heavy lifting. You know what I mean? I think I placed the microphones and I set up the mics on the piano, and other than that, I tried to be out of the way. Let them do their thing.
And you're just sitting back and learning at all this point.
Oh yeah, because I was an intern at that point.
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
And so I'm just trying to soak up as much as I can. I mean, I think that day I was like, it's funny. I think I was filling up candy machines that we had, and it's super loud, annoying, just super loud, plasticky, and I had the producer comes over to me and he's like, "Can you just not do that right now?" You know what I mean? It's like, okay, sorry, yeah. Just learning, just kind of how to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And, not get in the way of the process. And
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and a couple other people. Give me some names of who else you've worked with.
Sean Kingston, Soulja Boy, Kelly Rowland, some like Don Was, I forget. Michael Grimm was one of the projects that he was working on. Did some stuff with the guys from the Bravery, the Fray. And
I know, being in the business too, a lot of people that aren't in a heavy celebrity area or a heavy like entertainment area like we are here. Working with celebrities, and I remember my friends up at Tacoma go, "You ever worked with celebrities?" I go, "Not if I can avoid it." You know what I mean? And it's really sort of like that in my world. Not that we don't base anything on somebody being a celebrity. I mean, we may admire them, and even be a fan, like a lot of people. But there's, there are people
Right.
doing a
That's,
job.
at the end of the day, yeah,
There are
that's what they
people
want.
doing
They
a
just want to
job.
be treated normal.
Yeah. And I find that is really the key in anything else when everybody just sheds their sort of outer self when they walk into the studio, and you're there doing a job.
Right,
Now,
totally.
that talent is, you are, and neither of you would be there unless you were needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, and that's kind of what I love about it.
Yeah, I
know.
mean, you do have the random people that
Oh,
don't
you-
check the ego at the door,
They are there.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the interesting days.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, I'd say a lot of people are really down to earth.
Very much so.
And they just want to be treated like
Very much.
just normal.
And I think musicians too, because musicians look, actors take a big beating, but musicians, just talking about those 5 people that are out with the 5 people in the room,
Yeah.
As a group having to do that time after time, that makes a very tough person.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah,
somebody
totally.
who is very, very, they can almost do anything.
Yeah,
if
right,
you can do
right,
that.
yeah, exactly.
So I think that's really is, and I have found most people, most entertainers and stuff like that as being just that, very hard workers.
Yeah,
Very
I mean,
hard workers.
Yeah, they look
and-
at it as a job. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you can't go into it thinking you want to be rich and famous or something.
Oh, and if you do,
Right.
that's
You're
the last
already
thing
out the
you're
door,
gonna,
yeah.
That's the last thing you're going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, tell me who you've enjoyed working with the most.
Man, that's hard to do. I don't know. I hate to keep mentioning Phil, but like
Yeah.
Phil and I we're like had to be like road buddies. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like you become
You're
there
living together.
Yeah, you're like
Yeah.
almost roommates at that point.
Yeah.
So I mean, Phil is like just a great guy, super awesome producer engineer. I would love to work with him every day in the future. You know what I mean? He's just super nice guy. But nobody. It's just there's too many.
I know,
Everybody's
too
so nice.
many.
Everybody's so
Yes,
nice.
yes. No, I know exactly what you're talking about because I couldn't do the same thing. I could not pick one
Yeah,
person and
yeah,
say this.
exactly.
Oh, this is it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So many people, so many friends, so many favors, so many kind people in this industry.
Yeah.
That's why I do this show, because that's what I'm really trying to show. We hear so much about entertainment and Hollywood, and so much of it now is just
Yeah.
so ugly
Drama.
and degrading.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That most people in this business are not degrading people, whether you're in music or in your film and video. Most of us are, in all our contemporaries. Look, I met you.
Yeah.
We're almost the same type of people. We're in 2 different areas, but we're here to bring people up.
Right.
We're here to help people.
Totally. I think you got to have that mentality, just because you don't know who's. There's no like ladder system, so
There's
it's like
no.
the intern below me could be the most famous producer next week. You
Oh,
know
he
what I
can
mean?
hire
Like-
you next
yeah,
week.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So there's an element of that
Yes,
plays into it all too.
yes. And nobody hoards this information. Nobody's got all the information, and only they know it. So
Yeah.
you have to have them there to
Right,
make
right.
this. And you ask anybody, how do you make a hit? How do you make a hit movie? How do you make a hit record? There is not a human being on this earth that knows the answer to that question.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah.
And as my guest a few weeks ago, Greg Jacobs said, if anybody tells you they know where the video business is going, they are lying
Right,
to you.
right, totally.
And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So let me get back just a little more mundane now.
Okay.
When you're going with that producer for the first day in the studio and you're doing this, and this is really just a question from somebody who has no idea about the process, and he goes, we're going to go into the drums, and you start miking him. Is there a mic, like diagram of where you put all the mics, or is he just relying on that engineer maybe to know where the best places are?
So it's kind of both. There's certain guys that have like they want it done this way, X, Y, Z, and there's certain guys that are like, I don't care how you put mics on these drums, just make them sound good. You know what I
Okay.
mean? But I'd say for the most part, the producers these days, they do have their own style of, this should go exactly here and this should go exactly
Yes.
there.
And exactly
Yeah, no,
means
exact-
exactly.
Yeah, it
I
does
found
mean-
that out.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just like pointing a drum mic like 1 inch away from where they want it changes a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? We're going to take another quick little break. We're going to come right back with more of those questions. So we'll be right back.
Burnie's workshop is fantastic. Burnie's workshop is awesome. Burnie's workshop is insightful.
Burnie, in one word, passionate maybe. You can tell he really cares a lot.
Burnie is a badass.
He's a great teacher. He has great stories, and I would recommend this to anyone. Not only someone like me who's starting day one, but I feel that in any profession, as you sharpen your sword, it always gets sharper.
I think the best thing about this is the access to understanding how to run your business, how to actually be in this filmmaking industry and make money at it. Coming to this workshop, I think, is what actually gets you the tools to understand how to do that, how to get out there and sell yourself.
I thought that was really cool. I thought, he knows all the tricks in the book, and he knows how to show that to us and actually demonstrate it so we actually know what he's talking about.
I really like the hands-on experience. That's something that you don't find a lot. That's something you have to go on set a lot to just appreciate.
I know this is lighting seminar, but it's not only talk about lightings. He also share his business experience, personal experience, and guide us to what we should do, what kind of personality we should have in this business.
His stories, I think that kind of say everything, all in a few example stories that he gives out from time to time.
I would recommend this workshop to anybody who just brand into the industry, people who just don't know the swing of it. A lot of this stuff they don't teach you in film school.
I deal with a lot of freelancers every day, a lot of peers that I went to school with, a lot of professionals in the field, and they all need to take this class because it puts you on the next level, on the next playing field.
Burnie's a great guy. Burnie's really authentic. Like everything he learns, everything he teaches, the way he handles himself, the way he deals with other people, he's a one-of-a-kind guy. Someone I've never come across before in the industry, and someone I hope to emulate and hope that there are more people like him out there that can help.
And we're back with Billy Klein, co-founder and co-owner of Hybrid Studios and studio engineer, audio engineer. We were just talking about that, the process now between the producer and the engineer, and we had just talked about like using as an example, where do you put the mics? And you said, there's an analogy here to my side of the business too, that some know exactly where they want that mic placed, and others are just saying, hey, give me this sound. And it's the same with me lighting. There are DPs that I work for that they want the light right there. And they want it working, they know how they're going to work it.
They know what light.
They know what light, they know how it's going to look, they know what they want it to do, they know everything like that. There are other guys that just come in and they go, make this look like morning. You know what I mean? And then you do that. And I love both.
Right.
I love both because from the guys who are telling me exactly where to put it, usually I'm going to learn something, right? From the guys that say make it look like morning, I go, great, they trust me and I'm going to have some fun here.
Yeah, that's perfectly said.
It's really, really, really good. But now, past mic placement, say in the process of you're going through the day, you place the mics and stuff. As an engineer, what are the things that you're looking at from there? What are you thinking about?
I mean, it's basically just problem solving. It's just making sure that because most of the time you are only working on something for a short amount of time. So then it's like you create a whole nother setup and make all new wire paths and stuff like that. So you're basically just making sure that all the technical stuff is just working. So nobody has to think about it. That's I think the main thing is letting the musicians and the producer focus on performance. You know what I mean? And the engineer's job is just to make sure that technically that can be done.
That's good.
Yeah.
So just like a DP may be running his camera, he's making sure he's got extra charge batteries.
Totally.
He's making sure he's got his cards laid out. He's making sure he's got his lens case close by and can make those adjustments to that what he needs. So there, as an engineer, you're thinking, I need to facilitate this, and I want to have all my ducks in a row.
Exactly.
I've got
that's a great analogy.
Okay, great. And so now let's just say performance has started. Okay, and you're at the board. What are your cues then? You know the song, you've probably rehearsed it and ran through it, I'm sure. Are you looking say, are you listening for something and say, if this goes a little bit too much this way, I'm pulling it back, and I know to do that, or I just don't know.
Yeah,
Give
yeah.
me an idea.
So I mean, for the most part, they're just kind of controlling the recording system, just making sure that the takes are all being organized correctly as you're going.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much like fader writing stuff because that's all done after the fact.
Okay.
But yeah, for the most part, you're kind of just trying to keep morale up. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like it's all about vibe. It's all about morale.
Yeah.
It's all about
you don't want to
not
see
getting
somebody like
bogged
throwing
down.
your milkshake over, going.
Yeah, and you just don't want to like have the computer do some weird hiccup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as you're trying to have
as we
somebody
know they
sing.
all do.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. So you're just trying to facilitate, like what you said earlier, as much as you can. That's really, and at the same time trying to be transparent and stay out of the way about it.
Okay. So now you said like adjusting the fading and stuff like that. That's done afterwards.
Yeah,
you said.
yeah. Unless you're doing something live. Yeah.
Unless you're doing something live. Well, give me a little breakdown then between the two. We've talked about recording studios, and that's for. Now, what about live? What's that? And do you work live?
I mean, I can do live. I prefer the studio. There's pros and cons to each. The studio is more relaxed, where you can try things that you could just easily scrap. The downside is it's just time. You take tons of time trying all this stuff out. With live, it's kind of like once there's a problem, like it's just gone already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you're just trying to make sure nothing completely halts the live.
It goes from start to finish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like maybe an analogy is like multicam. How like you don't have, you're just making all the decisions, and if you make a bad decision, it's already gone.
It's done.
Yeah, it's gone, and people forget about it.
Yeah.
But like in the studio world, it's just like they're going to hear it over and over, so
so
you can't have an error like that. Yeah.
Right. Got you. I'm assuming live is more tense.
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's more I'd say, I wouldn't say it's totally more stressful because there is that kind of like, if you get a little bit of feedback or something, you just fix it right away, and then everybody else is already on, like
they're
past
going
it.
next.
Yeah. So they both have their pros and cons. With live, there is the 10,000 people could look back at you if it all dies or something. Yeah,
everybody goes. Ah!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you could have a moment like that, and I guess that is part of the stress.
Right.
But there is also like the element of just they stop playing and you're done. You know what I mean?
Right.
As opposed to like in the video where you got to do all the post stuff and editing.
But it's the same in the recording studio. Right. Once you've got that, it sounds to me too like you've got a whole post thing going.
Yeah, there is.
You're going to fade. You're going to bring things in. You may even go back into the studio and add some things, right, to bring back to that original recording.
That's overdubbing.
Overdubbing. Right.
And,
right.
That happens all the time.
Once again, going back to my only real experience where I was really like thinking about bands and sound and stuff like that, the Beatles, when they went into the original, thing, they were just playing instruments, right? And all four of them were playing, they were recording them.
Yeah, right.
Right?
And back then, like, for the most part, they all had to actually play the part right, you know what I mean? Like,
if they made a mistake, then
there
it was a
wasn't
retake.
really fixing it. Yeah, it was just start over.
Start over, right. And they were recording their amps, am I correct on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so incredible to me. And it wasn't even a 4-track player then, was there? Or
I don't know.
Maybe there was a 4-track.
Maybe. I bet there was probably a 4 or 8-track.
Yeah. But I know they did Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band on an 8-track.
Right.
I think.
And it's
which
pretty,
is amazing.
Yeah, it is, and you can find the files floating around out there, and it's pretty funny. You'll have like bass for 30 seconds, and then there'll be like a crowd of cheering people for 20 seconds. Just on the same fader. So you really got to know what's going to happen so you can adjust for it.
Right.
So I think maybe back then it was much more of a performance to mix.
Yes.
Whereas now you can really surgically get in there and dissect every decision.
Yes, you can take every piece of the recording and really adjust it. Yeah. So now in a modern studio, would the band be playing and somebody be singing at the same time?
It's kind of just like what they prefer. So sometimes yes, sometimes no. I'd say most people do prefer to do that just because that's how they're used to playing the song. They're
Yeah.
used to hearing, oh, here comes the vocal at this part, so this is what I got to do now.
Right.
You know.
So it helps the group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more cohesive.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You know, and then there's also the approach of like, okay, well, we want it to be, you know, completely in time, and let's focus on it being to a click, and so you're focusing on a metronome instead of like a vocal, you know.
Okay.
So it's there's the whole scale of, you know, of playing together and having it feel like a live performance, or there's like the perfect performance.
The perfect performance. Yeah. What is the difference between and does a and maybe you know, but maybe you don't, but does a band make a decision like, say, somebody who's going to do a lot of roads, let's say like Aldine, you know, country music.
I don't know much country to be
Yeah,
honest.
okay. But let's just say somebody who's doing a lot of concerts, and a lot
Okay.
of country guys do concerts, I know. Are they thinking about when they're in the studio, hey, I've got to reproduce this on the road?
I think there's, again, both camps. So there's the kind of musician that's like, how am I going to play this song live? I can't do all these layers of stuff happening.
Right.
And then there's the other thought process of, you know, the studio track is its own thing, and our live performance of it will be what it is. You
And
know?
they make peace with it.
Yeah, and they make peace with it. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, which philosophy do these, you know, does the musician kind of belong to?
Yeah.
But I'd say for the most part, most people these days do the, I don't want to say overproduce, but lots of layering that really can't be replicated live.
Yes.
You know, and then you have like the live version of the studio song.
Yes.
And you know, a lot of times you can get them really close, and most of the time the audience doesn't even care.
That's just their favorite
Yeah,
song
yeah,
anyway,
exactly. They
right?
don't
So
care.
you're playing,
Yeah.
there's their artist,
Right.
they're playing
Right.
it, and they're okay with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like
yeah.
if you add like a helicopter sound effect in the studio song, doesn't mean you need to like recreate
Recreate
it. You know
that
what I
out
mean?
there.
They're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
still
yeah,
love
yeah,
it
yeah.
either way.
Gotcha. Talk about fads, because I know there are plenty of fads in our industry, in your industry.
Yeah.
What are some of the fads you've seen come and go?
I mean, man, so I guess there's two ways of looking at this one too. Some of it is kind of like gear, the gear fad of like, okay, do we need to do analog or digital? And there's now kind of like a new wave of emulation, where they kind of just is like software emulating old gear that, you know, people that with bigger budgets use.
Sure.
That's kind of seeming like a hotter fad right now. Computer stuff is also like faddy. So like you go through like just ebbs and flows, you know, like genre might be super synthesizer, computer heavy, and then it'll become organic instrument, and then back to the newer version of the computer.
Computer,
you know. So yeah, it's
So
all
it
cyclical.
hits waves like that.
Yeah,
then,
yeah, exactly.
Things come in and out.
Yeah,
It's a more
yeah.
popular song and,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like instrumentation is kind of like the bigger, fattier thing like that. And then like analog versus digital equipment is also kind of like ebbs and flows. So,
Okay.
you know, like around the year 2000, the fad was kind of more digital. And then a couple of years after that, it got to be more analog because people didn't like the digital sound. And now you're kind of getting back into this like version of like, okay, we're doing digital again, but we're going to try and make it sound like it's analog.
Sound analog.
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of just always changing gear-wise too.
I love it. Well, you know, that's what always gets me about our industry. You know, we've gotten the resolution so high on the cameras. Now the job is to dumb it down.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
gotta,
And it's
like,
opposite of what you think. Oh, like, you know, yeah, you can see the molecular structure of this desk now.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But now you want to make it where it looks much
Totally.
more pleasing,
Yeah.
you know.
Sounds like like digital versus analog, and like film for you guys probably.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you know, all of this time wanting to get the film look. Well, you had film for 100 years. Why don't
Right.
you use film?
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
exactly, yeah.
But and then it's we want film look, but not that film look.
Yeah,
You know what I
right,
mean? We
right,
want this
totally.
other one. And for my mind, and we're back down to the people who could actually consume the goods now. For most of the people that I know, truly, you know, and I include myself in some of this, I couldn't tell you if it's on an Alexa or a Red. I couldn't tell you if that's shot in 8K or
Right,
4K
totally.
or, you know, 1080, yeah, 4K, 1080. I can tell that. But but it's still, that doesn't mean my enjoyment is any less of it
Right,
if it's
totally.
1080 or 4K, you know?
Yeah, and just to relate that to the music world, I
Yeah.
think a lot of the time people kind of get lost in these technical details, and you know, at the end of the day, it's all about a song. You know what I mean? So it's like less about what microphone you use in gear. It's like, is what you're saying into the microphone have any meaning to begin with?
So
Yeah.
true. You know, and that's where guys like us, we sometimes lose it, I think, because
Right. Yeah.
we do
We're the
focus
tech,
on
yeah.
all that stuff, you know what I mean? And it's all this, hey, do you think it was a pretty song? Do you think that was a pretty picture?
right.
That's all you're doing,
Right,
you
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
And really, coming down to the real basis of it, because this is just a very core belief of mine, nothing works without emotion. It's how do you feel about that picture? How do you feel about that song?
Yeah.
Do you love it? Do you use the
it's
word I
art.
love it, I like it, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's art.
Yeah.
It's art.
Yeah, it's supposed
you know?
to be, yeah,
It's supposed to be
inspiring.
subjective.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, you're supposed to have an opinion on
Right,
it as
right.
a consumer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So no, I think that is just very, very, very important. Tell me some of the things that you're going to be up to. What's coming up for you in your world?
I mean, right now we got a ton of gear that we got to kind of figure out the logistics to. We'll announce details on that as we have that.
Yeah.
We're kind of working. NAMM is coming up at the end of
Tell
January.
me what NAMM is.
NAMM is North American Music Manufacturers, I think is what it stands
I'll
for.
buy that.
Yeah, don't quote me
Yeah,
on that. But
yeah.
it's a convention for music industry equipment manufacturers.
Okay.
And it's in Anaheim, so right by
Oh, sure.
us here at the Anaheim Convention Center. And you know, we just do a big event during the weekends, kind of like an after party for the attendees to kind of just relax. We do drinks and food.
Do you do that here at the studio?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
so
we
awesome.
do some shuttles and shuttle the people
that's
over.
fantastic.
Yeah, so we kind of try and capitalize on the industry people being in our backyard. you know?
Absolutely, that's awesome. And when is that?
Our event's going to be on the 26th. It's a Friday.
Okay.
January 26th, 2018.
Great.
So we're kind of just laying all the prep logistics for that now. And
Great.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be very, very impressed. Tell us how people get a hold of you and Hybrid Studios.
Okay.
Right there, right to the camera.
Okay,
there.
so our website is www.hybridstudiosca.com. You can use the contact form there, or you can call us, 714-850-1499. Yeah, any social media you can reach out on. We're everywhere online that you could imagine. So, yeah, just drop a line.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Thank you.
I cannot thank you enough, Billy. You're the best landlord I've ever had. I want you to know that, buddy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I cannot thank you enough for that. That is just so informative to me. You have no idea. I mean, I've learned almost everything I know about the recording industry from you today, right here.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? We didn't even get into the subject matter, which I may want to have you back and talk about, you know, is the business side of the music industry, because it's been just like video and movies now. The movies are going to come in for it too. It's coming
it's
for them
changing,
now.
yeah.
But video side, music side, it's all changed and it's been turned upside down economically. So this may be another subject I'd like you to come back and talk to us about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank
right.
you for having me.
Yep, my pleasure. And we'll see you right here at Burnie's Applebox next week.
Cut. That's a wrap.